steps on two tracks because congressional legislation, as the Vice President conveyed this morning, obviously has a more permanent, lasting impact. Executive actions are, of course, an important lever that every president has at their disposal. There's current discussions and analysis internally of what steps can be taken. That has been ongoing for several weeks, even before these two recent tragedies, he looks forward to getting an update on and seeing what can be moved forward on that front as well. So he's not waiting for anything to fail, is really the answer to your question.
What executive actions do you think he's most likely to take?
It's a great question. I have it myself as well, but it's an ongoing policy process internally. I will say that his view, the Vice President's view, and our policy team's view is that it's not just about addressing gun access. That's important, and obviously there's legislation that's under consideration on background checks that they both strongly support. They want to see move forward. It's also about addressing community violence and a range of issues that are root causes and kind of lead to the deaths and the impact that we're seeing that's so troubling.
Got it. Thank you. And then on the other issue, the White House had conversations with Senators Duckworth and Hirono. I think one concern that they have brought is the question of who is advising President Biden from the AAPI community as we see this surge of violence. I know Ambassador Rice and Cedric Richmond are leading the engagement efforts. Who in the AAPI community is having direct conversations with the president about what's unfolding?
Well, you mentioned Cedric and Susan Rice, who have been doing listening sessions for some time, and obviously those will continue to pick up. Obviously, the Vice President, who is the first in the meeting and the last in a meeting on every issue, including the impact of the violence and the threats and that we've seen increase over the past several months against the AAPI community. As a member herself of the AAPI community, is certainly playing an important role on that. And as we noted in a statement we released last night, we are also adding a senior level Asian American Pacific Islander liaison who will ensure the community's voice is further represented and heard, not just around crises, not just around an increase in violence, but in general, and playing an important role with a seat at the table.
And to be clear, this is a new position in addition to the one over in public engagement?
This is the one that we announced last night.
It's going to be a new senior level position.
Yes, Addis, yep. Mm-hmm.
Will this person also have a policy portfolio, or will it just be mainly outreach?
I can get you more specifics. I mean, I think that when all the roles that are in our playing liaison roles, typically have a seat at the table on a range of issues. So whether it is healthcare or climate or community violence, so typically it's having a seat at the table on a range of topics, but I can see if there's more specifics. Obviously, we have not hired yet because we just announced this last night. Go ahead.
To follow up on Luja's question, on the president, we were talking yesterday about executive action on gun reform, but the president also was making it clear he wanted to see Congress act.
Yes.
Several times.
Yes.
Would he propose his own gun reform plan that he would present to Congress, as we've seen him do on the COVID relief plan and what we anticipate coming on the economic plan? Would this be something that could originate here and not wait for Congress to move?
You know, Karen, I think it's a great question. There's obviously a lot of pieces of legislation that have been proposed. There's these two background check bills that have moved their way through the House. There's also legislation that's been proposed by Senator Feinstein, Congressman Cicilline, that addresses some banning an assault weapons ban, which is something the president worked to pass in the 90s when he was in the Senate. So there's a range of steps that can be taken to increase gun safety measures. What our team is looking at now is what is the legislation that's out there? Are there any gaps that need to be filled? Policies or proposals that have been introduced in the past that could be reintroduced. So I don't have anything to predict for you on whether there'd be something independent. I think we're looking at what a number of passionate gun safety advocates on the Hill have already introduced to see where we can help push the boulder on that.
Has the president spoken to any of the families of the Colorado shooting, any of the victims' families?
I don't have any calls to read out for you. He is somebody who obviously has a deep connection to loss, and we don't always read out those calls. I can check and see if there's anything that he has done that he'd be comfortable conveying to all of you.
Can I do one more on the
Sure,
board?
go ahead.
Could you give us an update on progress from the Family Reunification Task Force? Have there been families, children reunited back with their parents? Where does that stand right now?
There have been, and a lot of that has happened through lawyers and outside groups and the NGO community that plays an incredible role here. There will be an update provided at day 120 that will be more of an official report and update out of the Department of Homeland Security. So in advance of that, I'm not sure we'll have incremental updates, but there have been some progress made thanks in large part to the work of legal experts and NGOs on the outside.
The task force is working with those NGOs?
They're in touch with them as well, but we'll have our first formal update at day 120, and then I believe every 60 days thereafter. Go ahead, Jeff.
Jen, why did the president wait until there was another shooting, until he addressed gun violence in America?
He actually addressed it. We put out a statement in his name on the anniversary of in early February, the anniversary of the shooting in Florida. So he has addressed it before, and certainly has addressed it even as president, and will continue to address it as president. And as you know, Jeff, from covering him in Congress for a long time, this has been a passion of his, putting in place gun safety measures throughout his career. That's why he fought to get the Brady bill passed, why he fought to ban assault weapons, why he was the lead in the Obama-Biden administration in putting in place more than a dozen executive actions to make it safer for our communities, and it's something that he will continue to work on as president.
Of course, he knows, though, that the president's bully pulpit is unparalleled, and yet it took him until more than 60 days into his presidency to talk about gun violence on camera in America. What does that say about his commitment or how much political capital he's willing to spend on this issue?
Well, I first would say that anybody who has been following the tragedies and the shootings that have happened in our country over the past several years, if not decades, knows that this is an issue the president is deeply committed to, and his career is evidence of that. And I don't think anyone who's an advocate is looking at how many words he's spoken. They're looking at what his background has been, where he has fought the fights, and he has fought the fights on the Brady bill, on the assault weapons ban, on getting legislation passed. It wasn't successful, as was alluded to earlier in a question. We know that. But this is something he's going to put his shoulder into. He's going to work with members of both parties. He's going to certainly advocate for. And I think for those who have survived gun violence, for those who've lost family members, they're really looking for action, and they're really looking at the record that he has over the course of the decades of his career.
If I could follow up on the question on the border. The access being granted today for the pool is of a facility that is aspirational of where you want to move these children. Mm-hmm. What about access to the facilities where there is overcrowding and there is an actual problem? Why was this one chosen over those?
We're also open to providing access there, and this is just the first step in a process of providing greater access to the media.
When would that decision be made? You said earlier in this week that you would be working on access. Is this the only access, or will that be coming?
No, I would consider it's ongoing, and we wanted to provide pool coverage, as you all know, who are in the television field of television, that allows for a video camera to provide access to all the networks. We felt that would be a good first step, and we're looking forward to continuing to engage about how to provide increased access.
Would you agree, though, that you've chosen the facility that is the aspirational facility as opposed to the problem at this moment?
Well, I would say we all agree that the Border Patrol facilities are not places where children should be. They are children should be moving more quickly through those facilities. That is what our policy central focus is right now, as you know, Jeff. And it's also becoming a public health concern because of the number of kids who are moving through those facilities and the fact.
Why not show those to the American people?
We will, and we are working with the Border Patrol and with DHS to determine how we can do that. Go ahead, Jennifer.
On Iraq and withdrawing U.S. troops from Iraq, could you please give us an update on Iraq's request for the start of talks on that withdrawal, please?
That's something we are looking forward to convening next month, and I'm not sure if I have an update other than to convey that we look forward to our strategic dialogue with the government of Iraq over the month of April. The meetings will further clarify that coalition forces are in Iraq at the invitation of the Iraqi government and solely for the purpose of training and advising Iraqi forces to ensure that ISIS cannot reconstitute. And we are committed first and foremost to Iraq's sovereignty. We look forward to these important discussions with Iraqi leaders on the future of our partnership that will convene next month. Go ahead.
I have a couple of quick ones for you. So on Nord Stream 2, that is an issue that keeps coming up in the relationship with Germany. How soon do you think those sanctions will be implemented? And has the President had a chance to discuss this issue at his level with the Chancellor of Germany?
I don't have any calls, although we do read out the calls that he does. So you would certainly know if he had a call with the Chancellor of Germany, I can assure you. So not a new one that I'm aware of that you are not aware of. We continue to believe it's a bad deal. I don't think we have an update on our policy position beyond that.
Okay, and then 14 states have now sued the administration over the oil and gas, over the pause in oil and gas leasing. What do you say to that, and how do you move beyond that? I mean, how do you, I realize there's a legal process, but how do you get your point across in this legal environment?
Well, I would say first, oil and gas jobs aren't going anywhere. The outgoing administration flooded the oil markets with cheap federal leases. This will not affect oil and gas production or jobs for years to come. And what President Biden has pledged to do is invest to create jobs and ensure America leads the clean energy revolution, which is where the industry is largely going anyway, where there is the greatest opportunity for job creation. He wants to create good-paying union jobs, and that's something he believes and he's committed to doing. I think there's a lot of there is some misinformation out there about what this means, which is why it's not, I'm not saying from the media, I'm just saying in general.